We're now going to look at how to create calculations, and these are the most basic of calculations, but it's so important to know how they work because by knowing the basics, you can get into some really complicated calculations. So I'm on a blank sheet, and you've got to think about Excel as if it was a giant calculator, okay? And everybody here can use a calculator, right? So you have a calculator and you have two numbers. Say we have 2 plus 3. So you want to put 2 plus 3 into your calculator. You would type the 2 first. You'd press the 2 button. Then you'd press the plus. Then you'd press the 3. What would you press to get the actual answer? Equals. Oops. There we go. And that gives you the answer on the calculator. But if I click on enter or OK or whatever you want to call it, I just get my calculation. It doesn't give me the answer. And that's because Excel needs something at the beginning of the calculation to say, calculate everything after this. Just like on our calculator, it's the equals. So if I just make this a bit backwards, do the equals first, then do the 2 plus the 3, and press enter, it now gives me my calculation. And when I click on it, can you see up here on the formula bar? Formula bar here tells me what my calculation is, whereas the cell shows me the actual answer. When we're editing calculations, it's quick and easy to come up to the formula bar and just edit them. You could do a double click, okay, but most people and most instructions that you read all over the place and in help and that will mention the formula bar because that's what it's used for. It's quick, it's easy, you click in it and you can change it, okay? So I can do the same thing. I can go equals, but instead of adding 2 and 3, I'm going to multiply 2 and 3. So I'm going to take a 2, and the multiplication symbol is our star or the asterisk. And there we go. Press enter. That's it. Now if I do subtract, I'll do 3 subtract 2, and so it goes equals 3 subtract 2, press enter, there we go. I can do divide, equals 3, and divide is the slash, it's that forward facing slash. By 2, this one's going to be a weird one, there we go. Yeah, so the rest were all nice whole numbers, we have a little decimal at the end, no problem. So basic calculations, easy, do exactly what you do on a calculator except for you put the equals at the beginning, okay? Thing is a lot of times, if I go to sheet 1 here, I've already got numbers in the cells, so I don't want to type it in like I've been doing. I want to use these numbers. Say I want to add these two together. So what I do is I start with my equals, then I click on the cell that has my first number. So in this case it's A3, so it's gone equals A3. Then I can go plus, and then I click on my next cell. Okay, and then I press enter. Let's do that again. Equals A4 in this case, plus, and the next cell. And I could type these in, okay? So I could go equals A5, and it's okay with that. Okay, but I don't know about you. I found it easier to click because then you know you have the right cell. Have you noticed that the cell references are also colored? This is called rangefinder, and rangefinder allows you to see where the calculations come from. So what cells they are and where they are. Okay, and it's great because when I click up at the top into the formula bar, they go colored, and it goes colored down here. It's much easier to see what cells went into a calculation or formula. Okay, and I can do a divide. I can also use my arrow key. So I'm just going to use my arrow to the left once, twice, do the divide, and then arrow to the left once. And there we go. So it's very, very simple to do these. it becomes a little more difficult if you have more than one calculation. If I'm adding up a bunch, then it's not so bad because I've got that one and I go plus and I go the next one, I go plus, the next one, plus, etc. And you can see rangefinder just keeps adding colors. It will eventually kind of scroll through. You can see I have a second green here. I've got an extra plus at the end. If I leave that and I press enter, Excel actually says that there's an error. Now, it doesn't always mean that there's a proper error. It sometimes means, like in this case, I've got something extra. Could it delete it? You can see here the only difference between the two calculations is there's no plus at the end. I want to accept that, so I click on yes, and it gets rid of that extra plus. No problem. So it can be a good thing when you get a little pop-up dialog box saying, "Ooh, there's a problem." Okay. And when I click again, I get my rangefinder. Now I'm going to go to sheet 3, my blank sheet, because I want to do something a little more complicated. Sorry. And this is where I am going to use 3 different numbers, 2 different operators. And on operators, the add, subtract, divide, and multiply. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my equals. And I'm going to do 2 plus 3 multiplied by 5. Now before I press enter, just think about what you think the number is going to be. Okay, have you thought about it? I'm going to press enter. It comes out with 17. So you may have thought it does the 2 plus the 3 first, which is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. And that would be the answer. But no, it didn't. It did 3 times 5, so it did this part here, which is 15, plus the 2, which is 17. So not quite the answer we were expecting. And it's because we have something called the order of operations. In the order of operations, we have B. And the next one, it depends on who your teacher was. Mine, it was an O. Some, it was an E. And we've got brackets. If I could spell, it would be easier. Brackets, there we go. And then I've got order for this one. Some people have exponents, if it was an E. Divide, multiply, add, and subtract. So I've got these order of operations. Anything in brackets is done first. Then comes divide and multiply. These two are actually on the same level. So if it's these lots of divides and multiplies mixed in together, it will read it left to right. And then after it's done all the divide and multiplies, it will do the add and subtracts. Again, these two are on the same level, so if there's lots of adds and subtracts, it does them left to right. So in our case here, I'm going to use a little trick, and this is a shortcut of control and the pipe or tilde or whatever it's called. It's a little button that, there we go, it has that little accent. Or if I shift, it's this little one here, looks like an upside down pipe. And that one with control shows and hides calculations. So you can see here, I've got my calculation. So it's going to do the multiply portion first before it does add, because multiply comes before add and subtract. If I'd like it to do the add first, the add and subtract first, what do I need to do? According to this list, what comes to the top? Bracket. So I go bracket 2 plus 3 and then multiplied by 5. Okay, and when I use my shortcut key to show the calculations, I now get 25. So depending on what values you're using, you can use this BODMAS to manipulate to get the answer that you want. So you have 3 items and that each at a certain amount, fine, you can multiply those. But what if you had 4 of one thing? So we've got 4 of something at 50 pence. There we go. And then I'm going to add that to 3 of something at £1.75. So it's going to do this calculation here, then it's going to do that calculation here, but then it's going to add the two separately, right? There we go. So with the brackets and the rest of the order of operations, you can have the computer, you can have Excel, do whatever calculation you want. So try a few out, try with and without brackets, see what happens.